Hey, Pastor, if you're facing growth challenges right now, you're trying to figure out how to scale, how to align your staff, and really how to get after the work that God's called you to do in that community, we would love to come alongside you. And I want you to know, we just opened up a brand new mastermind specifically for churches under 500. And if that's interesting to you, go to readysetgrow.church to find out more information and see if this is a fit for your journey right now. Hey, my friends, welcome to the Breaking 1000 podcast. I am your host, Mark Brewer. I have my friends Scott Wilson and Hunter Wilson with us today. And first of all, just want to say thank you guys for subscribing and liking. Man, it's been awesome just to see how many people are getting connected to this and how many people are actually being helped. You know, as we move toward Breaking 1000, one of the questions that comes up a lot of times for our pastors is, how do I maintain and continue to dive deeply into relationships while also building these systems of multiplication and scale?
Yeah, I get that. I mean, there's a lot of threat, right? Like when you're small, you're close to everybody. It's like you're like the personal chaplain.
It's family.
Right?
We hear that a lot,
yeah,
right?
So
Family.
like in the beginning, you're close to everybody in the church. You know everybody's name. You're close to every single team member. They feel like family. Y'all go over to each other's houses all the time. But it's more of like the people on the precipice of like, okay, I'm like hitting a capacity where like I can't remember their wife's name anymore. I can't remember their kids' names anymore. And I used to be able to. It's like they're like almost like forecasting. I think that's where it comes the most is they're forecasting like I'm about to be at a point where I don't know how to maintain that like tight-knit culture like it was if we're going to keep growing.
And
how
by
do
the
I
way,
do
I'm
that?
glad that you have, as a pastor, I'm glad you have that fear, that you want to maintain relationships and care deeply about people.
Right.
But how do you do it? Like, how do you do it?
I had 2 calls this last week. It's funny on this, okay? But 2 different ways. One of them was, hey, I had a great pastoral visit yesterday. I went to, I do all the hospital calls, and man, it was a great moment. And you know what? I felt so close to them. They felt so close to me. And really, I think throughout my whole ministry, one of the things is people look back and said, my pastor's a great pastor. When I was in the hospital, he was
And they
there.
retell those stories.
Yes.
I remember when Pastor came and visited us at XYZ or did this.
So there's 2 parts to that, though. That's how the people feel about you as a pastor, but it's also how you feel about you as a pastor. Because you get an emotional high when I'm the Superman guy who came in, or I'm the super servant guy that came in. And I'm a good pastor because I'm there for people when they need me. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be there for people. What can become wrong is when it starts being like, I'm the only one who can do that. And so that's not just a problem for the people in your growth. You become a lid to the growth because you don't want anybody else having that connection that you feel like you should be having. And it's important for you to have.
That is a problem if people begin to feel like I'm not being loved unless the senior leader loves me. There's no other way
But
to
I'm also saying the pastor's going is I can't miss that or I'm not a good pastor.
Yeah.
So it's both. It's the people's
Absolutely.
expectation, but it's also the lead pastor's expectation for themselves.
I think it's important because everybody is chasing their own definition of what success means to them. So if success definition is I'm the one that has to do this because I'm the one that is going to be the hero and I can only do this. I can only do this. I think that's really important.
Yeah. So the second one was a conversation of somebody saying, man, I feel like we need to have systems in order to grow, but I feel like every time we're doing systems like y'all are teaching us, maybe it's not going to make me as much of a loving person. And yet I see in you that you have systems, but you're also incredibly relational. And I feel like you're very responsive, but yet you also have systems that you're being able to do.
So
How
systems
do you do
don't
that?
make you a robot?
Exactly. That's what he would basically say. I feel like it's going to be. And what I was saying to him is I said, systems, you don't create systems so you don't have to have heart. You have systems to serve your heart so that your heart can now scale in the sense of I can love more people. Okay, you know who did this really good? His name's Jesus. People could critique him. Think about this. He prayed all night and he went and called 12 disciples. But when he called the 12 disciples, they're all thinking they're all going to have equal time with Jesus. And then ends up over time, as the ministry began to grow, he brought Peter, James, and John to himself in certain situations that they were in that the other 9 weren't in. And then on top of that, there were 72 that was really in the mix, but the 12 got closer. And then there was 500 that kind of followed him all over the place, as this inner circle group that had an inner circle group so there were layers of this. Did it mean that Jesus did not love the people that he was ministering to? No, they could feel his love. They could feel his heart did not change. And his heart did not become smaller as the ministry grew. It's that he had to have groups of people that he was connected to closer because of the calling and the purpose. It wasn't because he saw himself like, man, I got to have everybody close to me. He didn't. And the people had to shift. He had to shift. I remember that happening with us, Mark, when we were a staff and we were at 500, 600, that type of deal. It started being where I go, man, we have got to make shifts, not only in multiplying leaders, but our staff has got to be restructured, and we've got to have some executive leadership here. So I'm not the one just casting vision and then be able to do that. And when we made that shift, you know what happened? People started going like, what happened to our staff? We used to be the best. I used to be so proud of our staff. We were a family. Everybody wanted to be like our staff because we were together. And now we're becoming like all these other big churches that are all I don't know, business like.
They're corporate.
They're
the corporate thing. That's so hard. I always like to think of this in a family. If you have one kid, you have a certain way that you've developed your systems. If you have 10 kids, you become a corporation. Everything becomes more formal, more systemized. Why? Precisely because of what you said earlier. The systems are there to extend the heart of the pastor and the leader, not to block the heart, but to extend for scale.
What I think is so interesting about this, because I'm excited to hear what you're having to say on this, we have to understand how important this conversation is, because imagine the emotional dissonance in the heart right now, because you have pastors that want to grow. You have pastors that want to see more lives saved. You want to see more and better disciples. However, you're personally capping yourself because you believe that the 2 biggest threats that are going to kill everything about what I love about this church is more systems and more people. So how do you have this dissonance in your heart where I can't have the systems to grow, and I actually don't want more people because it's going to ruin everything, and yet I want to break 1,000. I want to have more people. Like that is a really hard place.
It's not that they don't want more people. It's that they don't want to lose the culture they have. They want more people with the same close-knit culture. How can you stay a close-knit family and go to 1,000? Well, it doesn't really work the same way you have it. Just like Jesus had to have the 3, the 12, there are going to be layers to your leadership. What you've got to do is not just think, I need to be close to everybody. I need to be close to the ones God's called me to be close to in leadership, relationship, who have influence to be able to train others, who are going to train others. Jesus discipled Peter, James, and John, and the 12, and the 72 for what? To be able to disciple other people, and then they discipled others, and that's how we're even here. So this isn't about just people who get to spend time with you as a pastor personally in your home, or that you're going to go personally to every hospital call. That is impossible to grow and to be able to be the man who does everything individually. That isn't even biblical.
There's nothing
Ephesians
biblical,
4,
Old Testament,
11,
New
and
Testament.
12 says, you are called to equip the saints for the work of the ministry. Who else had a problem? Who had a problem with this? Moses. Moses is saying, hey, if I this is so important. I've been called by God and anointed by God to judge, to be the one who keeps everything, the civil issues and the all the disputes, they've got to come to me. And Jethro, his father-in-law, says, what are you doing? This isn't working for the people. They're having to work all day long, sit all day long waiting for you to make a judgment. You know what you need to do? Listen to this. Listen to this. Huge. Jethro says to him, I think God inspired. You need to pick people of influence who have great skill and ability, and you need to let them know the principles of how to make judgments. And there are lower judgments that can be made that don't need you. They're easier.
Yeah.
Like you said, man, Joe could have made that decision, like
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
and do that. But then he said this, you need to have your heart in them. God, when he chose them and prayed, God put the same heart that was in Moses in them. The heart is in those people you're pouring into, and the same heart you have for people is in them. So it's not just you're multiplying a system to do skill or judgment or ministry care. It's the heart you have is reproduced in them. So that love that's in you is in them. That love that was in Jesus was in his disciples. How do I know? Because they said, wow, I take note. These people are unlearned, but they are powerful and anointed, and they have the same spirit of Jesus because they took note. They had been with Jesus. So it's not that you're not spending time with, it's not how can we get corporate and have a system where I don't have to spend time with people. No, you're spending time with the people God's called you at the highest level to pour into deeply so that they're going to do that with others. And those people get the same heart and skill, and it keeps going on. That's how you expand. That's what you want to do. And even it's not just like, and they need to stay with me forever. Some of them are going to go off to other churches and pastor. Some of them are going to become missionaries. But you continue to pour in them this way. If you do not do this, you will become the lid to the growth of the organization. Not because you don't have skill to multiply, not because you don't have a system. You are unwilling to do the system because you're scared that you're not going to be able to have the same heart and, honestly, not have the dopamine rush of having everybody going like, pastor was there, pastor did this. Now, how do you do this systematically that you can maintain the heart and the connection? Let me show you a couple of ways. When our staff grew and they started feeling that way, I had to define reality. Reality wasn't my heart was shifting. The reality was our systems and structures had to shift in order to support my heart to be multiplied into reaching more and more people. In other words, we knew how to preach, pray, love, but we didn't know how to do it at scale. Okay, that's what we're talking about. So one of the things I had to do is I had to figure out how to do this in staff meetings where the executives facilitating, the executives leading the meeting in that way so that I can be free to think and engage. And there's other people learning how to facilitate and to lead the execution, what's going on. But two things I did on that. Number one, I stood at the door of my office as everybody came in to the room for staff, right, Mark?
Yeah, you were always first touched. And it was usually full
out.
Frontal hugs.
They would, except with the guys. The girls were A-frame
That's
or side hugs.
A-frame side hug. Good,
but thank you.
Good revision.
But they're usually, I could see it right now. We were kind of talking ahead of time before the staff meeting. They would all be waiting out in outside of the office in the lobby area. And I'd open the door and say, all right, guys, come on in. And each one come in. I would hug them, high five, whatever, and say, man, good to see you, calling them by name. Hey, come here. You can't even get in the office unless we hug, like this. So I'm having a touch point. And if I knew, you would tell me ahead of time if something was going on with one of them, or if they had a birthday or if something happened with their kids or whatever.
By the way, that's a system that we had set in place to extend your heart of care for them.
So that when they came in, I said, hey, I was just talking to Mark. He said, blah, blah, blah. And they go, oh, yeah, see, you were serving me up, helping me to be able to connect with them. That was the system. When they came in, I learned I can delegate you talking about, hey, let's go through calendar. Let's go through going,
stuff.
Operation. Yep. Let's go through all of the different things we need to do on that. But what we could not delegate is the vision. The vision is what connects my heart to people. And so what I did is the first 15 minutes, I either did a devotional, a vision cast, a teaching to them,
or
and I would
in
walk
prayer
around the
specifically
room.
around a topic that God was speaking
I
to
always
you.
led prayer. And we would P3 together in that way, pray in the spirit, pray with understanding, pray in agreement. But I was lead. Our prayer times together in that way, our times of me casting vision and walking around the room, and I would, touch somebody on the shoulder and talk to them about it. Like, this is what I see in you, and I would do this, okay? The other thing that happened on that is anything that would happen in our church with people, that if there was a hospital, I didn't do all the hospital calls. I did hospital calls for those who were board members and family, staff and family, or if it was a tragedy that happened, something that rose to a level, kind of like how Jethro said, hey, if those guys can't handle those problems, they'll bring it up to you.
Yeah.
And you handle only the ones you need to be. So if it came to that level, then they would say, Pastor Brian, who was our pastoral care guy, who, by the way, was incredible at it. He was a lead pastor at a smaller church, and he found really my gifting is pastoral care and counseling. That's what I want to do. So I hired him to do that for all of us. So here's a sharp dude on that, right? But here's the thing is he would always tell me, hey, you may want to send a text to Linda and Tank. I call him Tank, but because I'm thinking about this week, Clarence and Linda, she's in hospice, you may want to send a text. Or you could go by there on your way, whatever.
That was a system that was set up to ensure that your heart could reach the appropriate people.
I love those people. He knew I wanted to be connected to them. So he set me up to be able to do it. Hey, you should see. He would even tell me, hey, I think if you just send him a card. But some of them would be, hey, if you just text him, it'd be good. He said, I think you need to call him. He would always set me up. He was doing the visits. They were doing the meals. They were doing all the connection.
Yeah.
They were doing all the counseling. But he kept me informed of moments that I could come in to just give a touch that I knew what's going on. In other words, instead of being there, I could be there through a text. Instead of being there, I could be there through a FaceTime.
Yep, picking the moments. Yep.
And so he's helping me to do what I want to do. Here's the other thing I did. You know what I did all the time? I would, from the pulpit or from out when I'm with people or whatever, I'd always go, hey, have you met Brian? He's like the most incredible guy we got on our team of taking care of. He always walked with me in the halls after service and before service. And anybody who had a need, I would pray with them and then say, hey, I care about what's going on with you right now. I don't want to just pray for you. I want to help you ongoing. Brian's the guy who does that. From the pulpit, I would often talk about, one of the greatest assets we have in our church is Brian Galbraith. I would say, hey, one of the greatest things about being here at the church is Pastor Mark, how he leads in this and leads this. What I'm doing is I'm celebrating these people to raise their value in the eyes of others, that they started thinking like this. I know Pastor loves me, but you know what? And I need help, but if I could get to Mark, that's just as good as getting to Scott. If I could get to Brian, that's just as good. I continued to raise the value of others. So it wasn't about, hey, let me tell you about a hospital call. I visited so-and-so in the hospital. If I'm visiting so-and-so in the hospital and I'm winning, everybody else thinks that that's what I should be doing. So I'm raising the value of everybody else and how I'm talking. These are shifts you have to make, not to change your heart or to lessen your heart for people or lessen your care for people. It's to be able to expand it.
Let me ask you a question. I'm trying to work this out in my head real quick. So you talk a lot about there's a difference between the vision and the vehicle. Okay,
Yes.
So the vision is where we want to go. That's where we're heading. Like, we're not changing it. This is where we're heading.
Correct.
The vehicle is really a way of saying, here's how we're operating right now to get there, right? It's the way we're doing things right now. So up until this point, you might have had a vehicle where it makes sense for you to do all those things. But now we're talking about changing vehicles, right? One of the things you said was there's a lot of things that I could delegate, like the things, a lot of the reports that you were getting to him, right? But you said, I can't delegate the vision. And I think what happens here is a lot of times people are settling into and celebrating, like, you know why you'd want to join this team? And they explain the vehicle features and benefits. Like, dude, if you're on this team, you're going to come over to my house and we're going to play Monopoly on Mondays and we get to hang out all the time.
If you're on this team, my door is always open.
100%, right.
If we're on this team, we have Taco Tuesdays.
Yeah, exactly.
That,
And instead, I think it's a redefinition of, like, we're not talking about the vehicle, because the vehicle has to change over and over again to accommodate the vision of where we're heading, depending on the season that we're in right now. But what you can't delegate is what success looks like is we are going to change vehicles to accomplish the vision. And I'm going to keep talking about it every single week in staff meeting. I'm going to talk about it from the stage. I'm going to talk about the vision. How do you think that goes? Do you think that there is a difference in the way that people talk about, like, okay, maybe they're talking about the vehicle so much so, and they're not celebrating the vision enough. Like, how do you think that works?
Well, I think it's 100%. I think it's also in the church and what you're celebrating, what you're using as your illustrations, everything that you do. If it's always you're the winner in the picture, or you're, hey, it's all about what the access you have to me in this church or on this staff, you're building the church around your personality. Not only is that going to limit your growth, but when it's time for you to transition, you're going to have a difficulty transitioning because your identity is in what you are for those people, not who Christ is for those people, and not what the system in the church functioning as a church. And so it becomes, look, people ask me, how did you do a successful transition? Now it's 6 years in, the church is up 1,000, up on I'll tell you why. I didn't build the church around me. I only preached like 30 times a year out of 52 weeks. I had, not because I wasn't here, I was on the front row celebrating other people. I was building other people. It's like I say all the time, my identity was more not about me being on the mic as much as was handing out mics. My identity was not as much as being the one who was always there for people. It's raising up the people who were there for people who were there for people. That way we're discipling. I had more of a focus on discipleship than on being the person.
And I think that's really good that you're saying that, because as a pastor, you may be considering right now, but man, my staff doesn't have the same heart I have. Okay, well then now you know where the gap is so that you can begin to disciple them. And that's one of the things that you were really good at. I remember when we were at 3 and 4 services, oftentimes I'd take 1 or 2 of those services to just go in all the rooms and high five the workers and
you're
hug
talking
people.
about all the classrooms or the volunteer rooms or all of the
every
kids'
place there were
church,
volunteers
people
working.
serving.
And I could say, hey, Pastor Scott just wanted me to come by, see how you guys are doing. He loves y'all so much. And that transference of heart scaled across the organization over and over. But that's one of the key things. You just said discipleship. You can't just make assignments to extend the system of caring. You had to impart heart, and that's where the leading prayer meetings, leading vision, sharing, and identifying the places for staff to really be able to absorb your heart and extend that.
I love how that's true with what happened with Jethro, that the same heart that was in him were in those leaders. That's what the scripture says. The same thing with Jesus. Hey, I see in you, you've been with Jesus. That people who are close to you, you've got that they need to be the right people, high capacity, high culture, stars, this type of deal. And those people you're pouring into not only skill development, training, all this, but heart. And then they're going to do the same thing with others. And then it will keep going. And so then that creates what we call culture in a church. Let me tell you something. The hardest thing is moving from a culture that is, I'm doing everything for people, that chaplain type mindset, to move for you as the lead pastor, for your staff, and for your church to move to, okay, I love everybody, but the way we're doing this is not going to be the same. That shift was biggest for Moses. Not for the people. The people had to shift them too, but I want to talk to Moses. They had to shift, but it first had to shift. Jethro had to come, inspired by God, to give wisdom to Moses and say, hey, this isn't going to work. It's not good for the people, and it's not sustainable for you. And so that's where I think we've got to get that picture of saying, okay, I'm going to do it like Jesus did, and we make the shift. The systems support your heart, not replace it.
Yeah, that's so good. Any last thoughts here as we land the plane on this?
No, I think that was good.
Wow, it's powerful. Okay, so Pastor, we know you want to grow. We know you want to break 1,000. And as you're developing the systems, you can transfer heart as well. That's just part of the dynamic. Thanks for joining us here today. This has been a great time. If you have a question or a topic that you'd like us to tee up, all you got to do is shoot us an email at hey@readysetgrow.church. And we'll see you here next time.